Hello, and welcome back to English with Tom and Julia. This is a space where we slow down, reflect, and talk honestly about life, growth, and the thoughts we don't always say out loud.
Whether you're listening on your way to work, late at night, or just taking a quiet moment for yourself, we're really glad you're here with us today.
Have you ever noticed how motivation disappears quietly? Not all at once, not dramatically. One day you're excited, then busy, then tired. And suddenly, you don't remember why you started.
If you've ever blamed yourself for losing motivation, this episode might change how you see yourself.
Motivation doesn't disappear the way we expect it to. It doesn't come with a dramatic moment. There's no clear ending. Most of the time, it fades quietly, in ordinary days that don't feel important at all. It often starts when effort becomes normal, when showing up no longer feels special. It just feels expected. At first, we call it being busy, then being tired, and only later do we realize we stopped feeling excited. And that's the part people misunderstand. They think motivation disappears because they did something wrong. But usually, nothing went wrong. Life just moved from new to familiar.
The first few days of anything feel alive. You notice everything. You feel proud of yourself just for starting. But once the routine settles in, the praise disappears, even from yourself.
And without realizing it, you start asking a dangerous question. Why doesn't this feel the same anymore?
Instead of asking, can I keep going even when it feels ordinary?
That quiet moment, when excitement turns into repetition, is usually where motivation first fades.
And most people mistake that moment for a personal failure.
And to understand why that moment feels so confusing, we need to talk about what motivation really is and what it was never meant to be. Motivation is an emotion, not a system.
Motivation feels powerful, so we treat it like something reliable, like it should be there whenever we need it. But motivation is an emotion, and emotions are temporary by nature.
Just like excitement, just like happiness, just like fear, they come, they peak, and they fade.
The problem is, we build our goals on top of motivation, as if it were a solid foundation.
But emotions were never designed to carry long-term weight. That's why motivation feels amazing at the start and unreliable later.
We don't get angry at happiness for not lasting forever, but we get angry at ourselves when motivation doesn't.
And that anger creates pressure. Pressure drains energy, and drained energy kills motivation even faster.
So the cycle continues. You wait to feel motivated. You don't act. You feel guilty for not acting. And motivation fades even more.
What actually works long-term isn't motivation, it's structure.
Systems, habits, tiny rules that don't depend on how you feel today.
Motivation is meant to invite you to start, not to carry you to the finish line.
Once you understand that, losing motivation stops feeling like betrayal. And there's another reason motivation fades so quickly, one that has nothing to do with discipline or character.
It has everything to do with how your brain is wired. Your brain is obsessed with novelty, new ideas, new plans, new beginnings. That's why starting feels so good.
The brain releases more dopamine when something is new, not when it's consistent.
Consistency feels quiet, predictable, almost invisible. And the brain reads that as, this isn't exciting anymore.
But not exciting doesn't mean not working. It just means your brain has adapted.
This is why people constantly restart. New workout plans, new study methods, new goals. Not because the old ones failed, but because the brain stopped rewarding them emotionally.
And instead of understanding this, we tell ourselves we're bad at consistency.
When in reality, we're just human.
Consistency doesn't stimulate the brain, but it builds results.
And learning to stay when things feel boring is one of the hardest and most valuable skills in life.
Motivation fades because novelty fades, but progress doesn't disappear just because it feels quieter.
Let's name this part clearly. This is part 4, why motivation peaks at the start. And the truth is, motivation loves beginnings.
Because beginnings feel clean. No mistakes yet. No guilt yet. No proof that we'll fail.
At the start, everything feels possible. We imagine the future version of ourselves, more confident, more disciplined, more put together.
And that image gives us energy, not because it's realistic, but because it hasn't been tested yet.
Motivation peaks when nothing has asked us to change for real. No resistance, no boredom, no repetition. Just hope.
That's why the first day feels exciting. The first week feels powerful. The first plan feels life-changing.
But motivation at the start isn't strength, it's emotion.
And emotions are loud at the beginning, then quiet down when reality shows up.
Reality asks for consistency, for showing up when it's boring, when no one is watching, when the result doesn't come fast.
And that's where motivation drops, not because you're weak, but because the fantasy ends.
Most people think something went wrong inside them, but nothing went wrong. This is just how motivation works.
Motivation isn't meant to stay high forever. It's meant to start movement, not sustain it.
The problem is, we expect the beginning feeling to carry us all the way through, and when it doesn't, we think we failed.
So when motivation fades after the start, the real question isn't, what's wrong with me? It's, what was motivation never meant to do in the first place?
This is part 5, when progress becomes invisible. And this is the moment most people quietly give up.
Because nothing looks different anymore. You're still tired, still imperfect, still not there.
At the beginning, progress feels obvious. You feel excited. You feel proud just for starting.
But now, you're doing the work and it feels like nothing is happening.
This is the phase where effort becomes silent. No compliments, no big emotional reward, no clear proof that it's working.
Progress doesn't disappear, it just stops being loud.
And because humans notice change more than consistency, your brain starts whispering, is this even worth it?
You don't quit because it's too hard. You quit because you can't see yourself changing.
Invisible progress feels like failure, even when it isn't.
And when progress feels invisible, something else quietly enters the room. Self-blame.
This is part 6, why self-blame makes it worse. This is where motivation doesn't just fade, it collapses emotionally.
Because instead of saying, this system isn't working, we say, I'm not disciplined enough. I'm lazy. I always quit.
Self-blame feels productive, like you're being honest with yourself, but it's actually draining your energy.
Shame doesn't create momentum. It creates fear. Fear of trying again. Fear of failing again. Fear of proving your own negative story right.
When you blame yourself, every action feels heavier. You're not just doing the task, you're carrying a judgment about who you are.
And motivation can't survive in a place where every effort feels like a test of your worth.
So you avoid starting, not because you don't care, but because caring hurts too much.
So if motivation fades and self-blame makes it worse, what actually carries you forward?
This is part 7, motivation versus discipline. And no, discipline isn't about being strict or cold.
Discipline is what shows up after motivation leaves.
Motivation says, I feel like doing this. Discipline says, I'll do a small version of this, even today.
Discipline doesn't rely on emotion. It relies on structure, time, environment, simple rules.
Discipline isn't intense. It's quiet, almost boring.
And that's why it works, because boring is sustainable. Discipline doesn't care if today feels meaningful. It just asks, what's the smallest action I can repeat? You don't need more motivation. You need fewer decisions.
When discipline replaces motivation, progress stops needing to feel exciting and starts becoming inevitable. This is part 8, the role of energy, not willpower. And this is where many people misunderstand why they can't stay consistent.
We keep blaming willpower, but willpower was never the real issue.
Willpower is fragile. It depends on sleep, on stress, on how your day already went.
Energy is different. Energy is the foundation everything else stands on.
When you're exhausted, emotionally or mentally, even the smallest task feels heavy.
And instead of asking, "Why am I so tired?" we ask, "What's wrong with me?"
Low energy makes discipline feel impossible. It makes motivation feel fake, and it makes rest feel guilty.
Consistency doesn't start with trying harder. It starts with protecting your energy.
That means fewer goals, more realistic days, and permission to move slower than you imagined.
When energy comes back, consistency follows naturally, not dramatically, quietly.
But even when energy improves, many of us still don't begin because we're waiting for something else.
This is part 9, why waiting to feel ready doesn't work. And this belief sounds reasonable until it quietly keeps you stuck for years.
Readiness feels like confidence, clarity, certainty.
But real life doesn't offer readiness first. It offers discomfort.
Most progress begins with doubt, with awkward first steps, with doing things before you feel prepared.
Waiting to feel ready is often fear in disguise. Fear of failing, fear of looking foolish, fear of starting imperfectly.
Readiness isn't a feeling, it's a result. You feel ready after you begin, not before.
The version of you who feels ready only exists on the other side of action.
If you wait for motivation, clarity, or confidence, you may wait forever.
So if motivation fades, energy fluctuates, and readiness never really arrives, what does consistency actually mean?
This is part 10, redefining consistency, and this part changes everything.
Consistency isn't doing something every day perfectly. It's returning, even after you disappear for a while.
Consistency is not intensity, it's forgiveness. Forgiving missed days, forgiving slow weeks, forgiving imperfect effort.
Real consistency bends. It adjusts. It survives bad days instead of collapsing because of them.
You don't fail consistency by stopping. You fail it when you decide stopping means you're done.
Consistency is simply the choice to come back. Again, and again, and again.
And the truth is, you've been more consistent than you think. You just expected perfection instead of persistence.
This is part 11. What to do when motivation is gone. Not low, not fading, but gone.
Because there are days when motivation doesn't whisper, it disappears completely.
On those days, the mistake we make is trying to force ourselves back into intensity.
We tell ourselves, tomorrow I'll restart properly, and tomorrow becomes next week, then next month.
When motivation is gone, your job is not to restart big. It's to stay connected.
Connection matters more than progress. One small action keeps the door open.
Read one paragraph. Open the file without working. Show up without performing.
These actions don't look impressive, but they keep your identity alive.
You're not trying to feel inspired. You're trying to remind yourself, I'm still someone who shows up.
And often, motivation doesn't return before action. It returns because of it.
This is last part. You're not broken. And if you remember only one thing from this episode, let it be this.
You don't lack discipline. You don't lack ambition. You don't lack potential.
You're human, living inside a brain that wasn't designed for constant motivation.
The problem was never you. It was the expectation that you should always feel driven.
Consistency doesn't come from pressure. It comes from compassion.
From allowing slow days, from respecting your energy, from returning without shame.
You're not behind. You're not failing. You're learning how to keep going in a real life.
And if motivation fades again, and it will, you'll know what to do.
Stay small, stay connected, and keep the door open.
You were never broken. You were just expecting yourself to be something other than human.
Before we end, thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening all the way to the end. That already says something about you.
If this episode stayed with you, feel free to share it with someone who might need it too.
And if any part of this felt familiar, you're welcome to leave a comment or share your thoughts.
We read them, and you're not alone in feeling this way.
Thanks for spending this time with us.
We'll see you in the next episode.